Now that's original.
In a world that seeks the way to gain earth's treasures to hold, people choose the things that decay. They have no concern for their souls, but I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. Won't you choose the way that is right? Don't be blinded by riches that glow. Seek the way of eternal life. You'll be rewarded, I know. I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. I'll choose Jesus, I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. I know He's the way. In song of praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. Jesus is my choice. Hey there, Acorns, and welcome back to Original Thursday. There's a song for you that Pap wrote, probably sometime in the 70s. I know the song was already in existence before I ever came along. And at the end of this, I'll tell you a little bit more about the song, and I want to share with you two projects, one project and one undertaking, I guess. I want to share those with you, and then at the end of this video, I'll let you hear Pap and Ray singing that song as they recorded it in a studio, as they sang it live, and then as they sang it on the radio. And we'll kind of go in reverse order. The very first one that you'll hear is maybe from about 92, and the one after that is a couple years prior to that, and then the last one that I'll let you hear is sometime back in the 70s, and it's a version of the song that I found on Reel to Reel. But I've always liked that song, and if I can find some handwritten lyrics, I'll put those in the video at some point too, so you can see those. And as I said, I've always liked that song. I like the melody, and I really like the words. I like the opening lines a whole lot. In a world that seeks the way to gain earth's treasures to hold, people choose the things that decay. They have no concern for their souls. And so that opening verse just talks about, here's the world as it exists. Here's where most people place their priorities, forgetting or not heeding the fact that those things that we tend to pursue, that our carnal nature wants to pursue, they're temporal. They're going to decay. They're not going to last. And then, of course, the chorus is, instead of that, this is what should be your priority, Jesus and salvation through Jesus. On the first little recording that you'll hear, well, let me come back to the lyrics, I guess. I also like the second verse. Won't you choose the way that is right? Don't be blinded by riches that glow. And of course, that it does say riches, so it's talking about money, but it could really be anything that is drawing your attention, that is making your carnal side want to really pursue it. Don't be blinded by that. Don't be distracted. Don't be fooled by that. Seek the way of eternal life, and you'll be rewarded, I know. So I really like all those lyrics, and I like the little chord pattern, the like that. And what I did at the very end, this is a song, by the way, that I'm going to share with Jamie Shook and see if he might be interested in learning to sing it with me. The way I sang the chorus the last time is the way Pap, and you'll hear when you hear them sing together, Daddy and Ray sing together, that's the part that Pap would sing, which is a repeat, and then at the end, a halftime. And so a halftime is you don't come in on the beat that the bass notes hit. You come in on the downbeat in between those two. Come in on that part, and you don't hear that very much anymore. Jamie and I have fooled around a little bit with singing a song that Don Reno wrote called The Lord's Last Supper, and it has a halftime tenor or harmony that comes in there, and Jamie finds it both frustrating and entertaining. He finds it fun but challenging, and we're still working on that, but this will be another one for him to try to do that. Now, when you hear the very last recording that the very last recording that I'm going to share, which was done earlier in the 70s, I don't think Dad did that, and they had a different way. Instead of doing the little falling notes of Jesus is my choice, instead of ending that way when the song would go to the low chord, it was Jesus is my choice. And I actually like both ways. That's why the very last time I sang it that way. Instead of Jesus is my choice, I just sang it as Jesus is my choice. And when Pap and Ray sang it that way originally, both the lead and the harmony just stayed together. There was no repeat or no halftime. In the very last recording, you'll hear Henry play the guitar on it, and it's very different than what I played or what Ray played. In the way they wound up singing it, so both in the studio and then on the live version that you'll hear, they sang it here in F. And I actually kicked it off, even though I was just a teenager, I kicked it off on the Taylor that you see me play in a lot of videos, the Taylor 710. It was a little out of tune in that studio recording, I can hear, but I kicked it off as just a little cross-picking turnaround. And in the studio recording, Ray played it like this, something like this, in the break. Or something like that, little bouncy turnaround. But in the live version that you'll hear, Ray played the full break, which is what I did when I sang it just a minute ago. I like that little double hammer off, or hammer on, hammer off, I guess you'd say that he did. In that live version, here's something that you can listen for. And by the way, the live version is only I guess you'd say a fragment. It comes in toward the end of the first verse, and then you kind of get from there to the end. And the reason is that was a live show down at the John C. Campbell Folk School, and the late David Brose, he was recording it, and he did a great job with the basic equipment that he had. He made that recording on a cassette. But he was actually putting in a new tape or maybe turning the tape over, so he missed the beginning of that song. But one thing that you can listen for in Ray's break, in the second half of the break, Pap, I really like what he did. Now, he was playing back here in the D position. This is something that Caleb Dykes and I have been talking about a lot about lately is, once you know the key of a song, and Caleb never really used a capo. He's so good, he doesn't have to have a capo, just like Doyle. and other accomplished guitarists, but Caleb has been playing with a capo with me and Jamie, and he and I talk about different options. Oh, that song's in F, so I could play in F position, or I could clamp once and play in the E position, or I could clamp on the 3rd fret and play in the D position, or I could clamp on the 5th fret and play in the C position. So you have several options, and it kind of depends on what chord positions you want to use. But anyway, as you saw a minute ago, I was on the 5th, clamped on the 5th fret, capoed on the 5th fret, and played in the C position. That's where Ray played. Now Pat played back here. And one thing that you can listen for in that live version, it's a simple thing, but I really like it. Pat, he would not get the full B minor. And I've known actually a lot of guitar players who they just get B minor. The song would have a B minor if you're playing in that D position. They would just get sort of the bottom part of the B minor, and they would not hit the top 2 strings. Of course, the full chord would be like that. And Pap had broken that last knuckle on his finger when he was young. He was holding a stake or doing something, and a relative of his that was just a little bit older than him was swinging, hitting it with the back part of an axe or a hammer, and hit his finger right there and broke it. So he struggled with F position in certain positions when it came to having to lay that finger down. So Pap would get his B minor like this. But what he did in that song, because in that particular part, it's there for such a short length of time, he goes to a B7 position, but he doesn't hit those parts of the strings because that would not work with the minor. So Ray, again, he's picking, let's see. Those are the notes that he's picking. So Pap, here's the way Pap chords that verse, or I'm sorry, chords during the break. Here's the run I like. I just really thought that was clever. So he's chording in the A position there in the middle of the break, and then he walks his way out, and then because if you did get the full B minor, you would be hitting that string right there. Pap's actually going to this position, but he's only hitting those top strings. Anyway, something to listen for. I just thought it was cool. And it doesn't sound that great by itself, but it sounds really good when it's done behind. Anyway, something to listen for. I just always liked the way that Pap did that. I guess that's about all I wanted to say about that song. It's a simple song, but has kind of always been one of my favorites that he wrote. To me, it's a happy song, kind of a bouncy little number, and it just sounds happy. The chorus sounds happy. Like, I've made up my mind, I've chosen Jesus, and it's going to pay off for me. This is the right choice. Unlike those other things that are not going to last and that are not going to go anywhere, I've made the best choice. I've chosen Jesus, and you should choose Jesus too. Why don't you do that? Why don't you choose the way that's right, is what the song says. And don't be fooled or taken in by all the other choices that you could pursue. I said that I was going to tell you about a couple of things, little undertakings or projects. So the first thing, I guess, that I'll tell you about is that I am going to be selling these original Words of Life records. Now, the song that I just did for you is not on this record, but in future Original Thursdays, I'll do some songs that are on this record. And here on the Blind Pig channel, you can hear several cuts from this record. And eventually, I will put the entire record on here where you can just listen to it from beginning to end, for free. Now, some folks might say, well, if I can just hear the whole thing for free, why would I want to buy the record? Good point. But I have a lot of records right over there, including one that I just recently bought of Creedence Clearwater Revival. I can hear all of that stuff online for free. But there's just something kind of cool about having the album. And right now, well, really, who knows, it may end soon, but for the past several years, there's been kind of a reemergence of interest in vinyl. I am going to be selling these, and I'll put my email address in the description below and also on the screen below. And if you do PayPal, all you'll have to do is just send me your payment through PayPal and a little note. And if you don't do PayPal, you can also just mail me a check or money order. But the cool thing about this is not a reprint. So this record that I have in my hand is 52 years old. This is the original print. And I might at some point do reprints of this if I'm able to. And a reprint may sound just as good, but this is a first issue. And so when you're talking about albums, the original first issue is always going to be more valuable than a reissue that's sort of on a different label. This album, it was briefly available in the 90s as a cassette. You can see totally different cover art. I think that's a picture someone took of Dad and Ray up in Andrews performing somewhere. But you can't get the cassette anymore, and of course most folks don't even have a cassette player. But I am going to, like I said, be selling these. And Pap and Ray, when they had these records made way back in the 70s, it was a pretty big investment for them. I think Dad and Mom borrowed some money, and they divided up the records. Honestly, I think they just gave most of the records away. They may have sold a few. They probably sold them for $5 or something like that. Maybe 10 later on, but probably around 5 most of the time. And I mentioned in previous videos or earlier videos that I found 2 boxes of these records in the bottom of Pap and Granny's closet. Now, some of them had been opened, but around 45 of them had never been opened. So this would be an opportunity for folks to buy an original issue. It's been sealed up for freshness for 52 years. And, our family has held on to these for so long. But as I mentioned, I did a video with 2 of my first cousins where we sort of did a review of this album, and we did it on the 50th anniversary of this album. And as I mentioned, I believe in that video that my perspective has changed. I thought, well, that's something our family should just hold on to. But then, I started to think, well, why? What good is a record if no one is hearing it? So now my goal is to get the record out where as many people as possible can hear it. And then when they're all sold, maybe then I'll do try to do some kind of reissue. But this will be, like I said, the original real deal that they made, all the way back then. I asked someone for advice who's kind of familiar with these types of things. What should I sell these for? That person said no less than $50. And that does make sense. I mentioned in a previous video how I have a framed album of the Louvin Brothers that is Satan is Real, and it's a reissue on the Stetson label. It's just like the original. It's beautiful, but it is a reissue. So, I gave 20-something bucks for it brand new. If it were the original issue in that kind of condition, it would be worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Now, having said that about the $50, my goal is not to make money or make profit. And shortly after that video that we did on the 50th anniversary with my cousins, I made sure any of my cousins who didn't have a copy, an original copy, who wanted one, I gave them one. But like I said, there's no point in these records sitting in a box here in Brasstown when they could be out there being enjoyed and passed around and listened to. That's the whole point of writing and performing gospel music, is to bless people, to lead people closer in their relationship to the Lord. So I am going to make that the price, the $50, with no shipping charge. However, in your PayPal message or in whatever you send me, if $50 is a little too much for you, that's understandable. And you just put a note in there, hey Paul, I can't pay 50, but here's X amount. And there's no amount that's too low. In fact, if you want to email me or send me a letter that just says, I would really like to have that record and I would listen to it and I would share it, with folks, but I just can't, I can't send you any money, or I can only send you enough for shipping or whatever. You let me know and I'll get you the record regardless, if you can't pay anything at all. Because again, the point is not for me to make any money. The point is to try to get these records out there. But let me know if you have, because my email, you have that now. Let me know if you have any questions about these records. There's 10 songs on there. I believe Pap wrote the first 4, and then there's a couple of classic hymns on there, and then there's I want to say about 4 Louvin Brothers songs on there that they covered. And on this record there is Pap and Ray, singing 2-part harmony. And then there's their younger brother, Henry, playing an electric guitar. And there's a steel player. I don't know the steel player's name, but he did a great job. I don't really know the bass player's name. I have some theories on who the bass player was. It was an upright bass. And whoever that gentleman was, he did a great job as well. And then there's a snare player on some of them. So just enough accompaniment, not anything that's going to overshadow the music, but it's probably the best album that they ever made, was that very first one. One other thing about that song, Jesus Is My Choice, and then I'm going to tell you about the other project, which is really a bigger project than just selling off, 40 records. In the last version that you'll hear at the end of this recording of Jesus Is My Choice, they sang the song right here in G. In a world that seeks the way to gain earth's treasures to hold, people choose the things that decay. They have no concern for their soul. I'll choose Jesus, He will be my way. In the song I will lift my voice, Jesus is my choice. That's actually more comfortable for me, singing-wise and playing-wise. And Uncle Henry, he did something totally different. The chord pattern to what he did, not the notes. I can't do the notes that he did. Was something like something like that. I meant to share that earlier, so I just wanted to work it in now. Partly because in case anyone out there wants to sing this song, perform this song, they might hear that last version and it's not a video, it's just audio, and wonder, well, hey, if I do the chords that I saw Paul doing when he was in F, that doesn't work with what they're doing here. So I wanted to kind of show you a little bit about both. But always, if you want to do one of these songs and you have questions, if it's, hey, I can't understand the lyrics in this one place or anything, just reach out and let me know, because that's what I'm trying to do, is propagate these songs, get these songs out there. Now, speaking of that, the much bigger project that I'm beginning to undertake has to do with that very goal. A while back, I did a video with Josh Griggs and Caleb Dykes, and we did a song that was written by Josh Griggs' great-grandfather. And that song is Living in Canaan Now. And through, Josh had kind of told me this, but then also just through research and preparing to do that video, I really started to see that that song is just known all over the United States, and just tons and tons of groups have done it. So I really started to think about that. Why is that so? Yes, it's a great song, but why is it that so many people know the song? And the conclusion that I came to, may be right, may be wrong, but the conclusion I came to is it's because that song was published in songbooks. So then I started to think about that with regard to Pap's songs. Pap wrote around 60 songs that I know, that I'm able to sing. He wrote some more that I don't know, but those are the ones that I know. So it occurred to me that I might be able to do more, accomplish more in terms of getting those songs heard by publishing them in a book, a songbook, than I could ever do by recording them and releasing CDs or songs that can be downloaded. Regardless of how good I might ever be able to do the songs, it's just not going to reach the audience that way, a very big audience. So I talked with Tipper about this. I've talked with Caleb Dykes about it. I've talked with Wade Powell III about it. And what I'm going to try to do with their help is publish a book of Pap's songs. And I don't know what the name of the book will be yet, but I'll try to put a lot of photographs in there. And for the ones that I have the handwritten lyrics, put that in there, maybe in the back as an index, things like that. Maybe the book will be accompanied by an audio CD or even a DVD where people can hear the songs. But the main goal would be so that someone in your average church, the average choir, the average piano player could see the sheet music, could play the song and sing the song. And a few of Pap's songs were written down in music, whatever you would call that, scribed. See, I can't read music, so I'm not really familiar with all the terminology. And I have that, but they look pretty simple. It doesn't look like what I see in a hymnal, and I'm not able to read and know is this correct or not. But today we have all sorts of tools at our disposal. In fact, there are programs, AI programs and software where I could just sing and play one of Pap's songs, and the computer would listen, and then it would say, here's the sheet music for that song. So that can speed things up dramatically. I mentioned Wade Powell III. Wade was a music major, and he knows a great deal about music theory, and he can both not only read music, he can write music in different arrangements. So he's going to help me with this, and he's been working on the very first song that Pap ever wrote, which is a very simple one called Jesus, Oh Jesus, You Kept Me From Falling Today, or Oh How You've Helped Me Today. I'm drawing a blank. It's one of those two. You can hear that on this channel. It was also on the Live to Never Die CD that I released a year or two ago of Pap's songs. And Little Wade, he's writing out that music. And he's close friends with a music professor at Young Harris College, Dr. Chapman. He's taking what he writes and he's presenting that to Dr. Chapman for him to look over. And then when they kind of have it where they feel like it's correctly represented of the song, they're going to give that to me. I'm going to take it to different local piano players and maybe even choirs and say, can you do this song? Can you learn this song from this sheet music? And Little Wade and I have also talked about maybe for each song in there might be a real basic, simple arrangement, and then maybe a more advanced arrangement. And you could kind of learn both or pick and choose from the two. To show you how little I know about it, Little Wade and I were texting about it, and he said, "Do you want me to do that in SATB?" And I said, "What is SATB?" And he said, "Soprano, alto, tenor, bass." And I said, "Oh, sure, yeah, that's what I want you to do." I said, "Wait, is that what the hymns in the hymn book, is that how they're written out?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Then, yeah, that's what I want you to do, Little Wade." So anyway, this may take us years to do, but when it's finished, my goal, my hope is to make these available, of course, on this channel and then on Tipper's channel. Tipper has been very successful in selling her cookbook. So maybe we can have, even if we have 10% the amount of success that she's had with that cookbook, I would have, again, accomplished far more in terms of getting Pap's songs heard by the world than I could ever accomplish by making recordings. So that's just a little bit about the projects that are coming up. And coming back to the record sales, I don't really know how well these will sell. They may quickly all sell. And if they do, I'll come back and edit this video in some way and maybe do a community post on this channel so that everybody knows, I'm sorry, they're all gone. But if they do sell well, and most people do pay that price that I mentioned, one thought that I had would be to take that money, and when we finally get to the point of printing these books, provide free copies to churches. Any churches that indicate that they're remotely interested, like if you give us these songbooks, our choir and our pianist, we will do some of these songs. We're interested in singing some of these songs. To give them, free copies, and that way the church doesn't even have to buy them. It's just, here you go. Here's some songbooks from the Appalachian gospel songwriter Jerry Marshall Wilson. So that is a long-term goal, and I just felt like sharing it with you all. Again, if you have any questions about the album, just email me. If you do PayPal, that's the simplest, quickest way, and I will try to check my email at least every other day and ship out those albums. I'll try to pack them real carefully with bubble wrap. I've already ordered the cardboard containers to ship them in there. I will probably ship most of them media mail because that's the cheapest way. Now with media mail, you're going to get it anywhere between 3 or 4 days and 2 weeks. If you're wanting it, if you're in more of a hurry than that, then let me know, in your message or in your letter. If you choose to mail me a check, just say, "Hey Paul, I want that sent, first class, or I want it sent overnight," or whatever it is that you want it sent. But I appreciate you watching this. Stay tuned, and you'll hear kind of 2.5 recordings of Pap and Ray singing "Jesus Is My Choice." I meant to hold this up. Here's the album that it appeared on, and you can see that the name of the album was "Jesus Is My Choice." That's Pap on the far right, your far right, and then Ray, his younger brother, in the middle, and then Perry Stockup playing the bass, who recently played with me, Jamie Shook, and Caleb Dykes at a couple of churches. And this picture is taken right out in front of Wade Powell II's house. If you look closely behind Perry, you can see the highway that's going by. Funny little thing about this picture, we have one version, well, actually it's been cropped. You can't see the highway behind Perry, but later in this video you'll see what I'm talking about, where you can see the highway. We had a funny version of this picture that, of course, we didn't use. And right as the picture was being taken, there was an old red-boned dog that was walking down the highway, and he was right behind Perry when the photo was taken, but you could still see his tail sticking out behind Perry. I don't know why I remember this. Remember that? I'm playing on this album, but I was not there the day the picture is made, which is totally fine with me. I never liked having my picture taken anyway. But anyway, maybe we'll share some more songs off of this sometime in the future. When you hear this studio recording, it's not the greatest. As the American Idol people would say, it's a bit pitchy. Dad and Ray, sometimes they're a little off key here and there, but their harmony is super tight. Even when they're off, they're kind of off together. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed both me singing the song. I hope you enjoyed hearing about those projects and the opportunity to own one of those original issue records. There's only those 40 or so, and then when they're gone, they're gone. And yeah, we'll see you next Tuesday for Old Timey Tuesday.
In a world that seeks the way to gather treasures to hold, people choose the things that decay. They have no concern for their soul, but I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. Won't you choose the way that's right? Don't be blinded by riches that glow. Choose the way of eternal life. You'll be rewarded, I know. I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. They have no concern for their soul, but I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. Won't you choose the way that's right? Don't be blinded by riches that glow. Choose the way of eternal life. You'll be rewarded, I know. I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. I'll choose Jesus. He will be my way. In song praise I will lift my voice. Jesus is my choice. In a world that seeks the way to gain its treasures to hold, my riches.